Hey guys, welcome to this video. My name is Matt. I'm a car photographer for almost 3 years now, and in this video we're going to be editing my followers' car pictures. So let's dive right into it. Starting off with this picture of this Mercedes by @Pietix on Instagram. A cool photographer, you should check out his stuff here. Let's start off with just increasing the exposure so we can see what's going on here. I like to usually hop straight into the tone curve, make an S shape here, maybe bring it to a darker side in general, and fade the shadows up a bit. Go into the colors, make the same S-curve. Now this is a secret hack, by the way. If you make this properly, this looks really cool in the end. The key is to not go overboard here, just subtly change it up a little bit. You already see we're getting some nice color here in the shadows. Also could lift up at the end here a bit higher. Same for the reds. And then do the same thing for the blues. Already, just with the tone curve, that looks quite nice. Let's keep going. I actually like the idea of bringing out more of these yellows and oranges in these locations here. Could maybe even make them a bit more orange. Oh yeah, that's lovely. Just play around with these until you see what you like. I usually increase all of my saturation and except the blues. To me it looks a bit more cleanish with mainly warm tones. In terms of color grading, I usually don't play around with midtones, just highlights and shadows. Highlights, I could see us going with like a greenish tint, something like green for highlights and blue for shadows. You can already see it as a bit of that greenish tint. In detail, I keep my sharpness at 50, radius 1, detail 25, which does the job for me most of the time. And then here, I usually desaturate my green primaries a little bit. We could go back and make these yellows a bit more vibrant. Something like this. Just some final adjustments here so we can see some more detail in the car. Bring up the whites actually a little bit. We bring up the blacks and let's do some masking here. One of my favorite tricks to add in masking is to add a gradient from the bottom, lower the exposure there, and add some clarity and texture. Also we could increase the whites so it pops a bit more. Maybe some contrast too, and make it a bit longer. And you can see it pulls this focus to your subject, which in this case is the car. As well as that, I do like to have another gradient filter up here and make the exposure a bit brighter. Also we could make it warmer. That's lovely. Bring it up, and then we do a bit of a dehaze. Maybe not that warm, that's a bit too yellow. Bring up the exposure a bit more, shadows down, and you can see that adds a nice, like, almost like the effect of the sun coming down from the sky, which is really cool. Let's add a mask on top of the car, as per usual. And in this mask we are going to add some clarity. Something like that, not too much. Let's try to not overdo it. Exposure up a bit. We can increase the contrast, so that makes the car pop a bit more. And another thing which I like to do is add a radial filter, somewhere on the sides of the car. Increase the exposure there. And make this like a fog effect, so you can see with the radial filter and without. It almost creates this like fog in the background. We could try putting that here in the front as well. How does that look? Maybe it has the light from the window. Oh, that is nice. And let's do a bit of an Instagram crop here, 4x5, as per usual. Let's make this a bit darker as we adjusted the crop a little bit. We can make this on top a bit brighter. And here we are. First picture looks like this. That turned out absolutely great. What a beautiful picture here. The next picture we're going to be editing is this picture of this E36 in a really cool location. Let's make it a bit brighter so we can see what's going on. In terms of the photography, we might need to maybe extend this later in Photoshop, but this issue could be prevented by moving back a few steps to get more space on the sides of the car, so it's not that squeezed in. And it is a bit bluish, so let's make it a bit more natural, a bit warmer. And first things first, back into this tone curve. Tone curve is a really powerful tool. If you don't know how to use it yet, definitely learn how to use the tone curve. Or just replicate what I'm doing, because most of the time these tone curve settings work. So bring up the blacks here already. With the tone curve we're getting some nice contrast. Let's do the same S-curve for all the colors. Bring up some more reds in the highlights, some reds in the midtones, some blue tones in the shadows. Same for the greens. That is beginning to look lovely. Maybe not that much fade. Let's bring it back a bit. And let's do the same thing for the blues as well. Alright, let's make the overall image once again a bit more warm. Bring out more detail in the shadows. Let's bring this up a little bit more. We can also do it through here, just a bit. We don't really want to push the image too hard. Let's get rid of the saturation in the greens. Okay, maybe not that much, something like -66. Details, add some sharpness there. Let's see, what color do we like for the highlights? I like this cyan color. And for the shadows, something not too aggressive. With some of these bluish tones. Let's mess around with the colors here in general. Make it all a bit more saturated. Bring up the blues actually. This looks quite nice with the blues. Bring it brought up a bit. We could make them a bit lighter as well. Okay, and let's see what we can do with the hues. Actually, you know, I'll bring up the green primary hue a bit more, because I want some of the yellows back a bit. Bring the blues back down. Bring the saturation of the yellows and the oranges up. That adds a nice little kick. You could increase the vibrance a bit. Lower the clarity a little bit. Let's do some masking here. Let's add linear gradient from the bottom. It's a bit too blue. Let's make it warmer. Clarity, texture. Go to the whites. Let's add another linear gradient from the sky. Clarity, dehaze. Wow, that was lovely. Okay, we could try the select subject, the AI features on Lightroom. We have a nice subject of the car, lovely. Let's increase the clarity a little bit and the texture a bit as well. Let's do a bit of a final crop here. Yeah, this could work. I like a bit more space on this side. Okay, let's make this mask a bit warmer and a bit darker. That is before and after. Before, after. Really lovely. Moving on to the next photo. And this is a stick night photo by Chris. Let's see, maybe we can do a bit of a preset on this one. Let's use preset Daydrift. It's a bit dark for now. We can increase it. Bring the blues back to normal. Already this car pops out great. We can boost it up a bit more. Let's do a bit of a straighten as well. What a sick location, man. And the red color on the car really pops out nicely. Can bring down some of the highlights a little bit, not too much. Here we already have the gradient filters. So bring this one up. Bring this one more from this side. And then we can add a brush stroke on this side and on the headlight. What we could do with this is increase the exposure just a tiny bit, reduce the clarity, add some dehaze for some halation, if you will. Maybe a bit on the taillights a bit as well. Already that looks great. Let's make it a bit more straight. Something like this. Yeah. Maybe it could be a bit warmer and a bit more of these purple pinkish tones in there. In terms of the color of the car, it looks quite perfect. Let's not mess with that too much. However, we will add a subject mask as we did in the previous photo and increase the exposure up of this car a bit. Highlights, that looks quite lovely. What I'm thinking is let's try and add a radial filter here. Make this part a bit brighter as well. Right, and this is the after, before and after. Wow, it's turned out great. It's a sick photo. Alright, and the final photo of the video is going to be this one here by Alexander J. It's quite a dark photo. Let's bring it up so we can see what's going on here. Yeah, it's quite grainy, so we probably can't bring out the exposure too much. Let's bring it back to this more neutral color. Let's see if the color picker does a nice job. Yeah, okay, that already looks much better. Let's play with the tone curve, add an S-curve, and all that fun stuff. Increase the midtones a bit, and increase the highlights a little bit as well. So let's add some color here, just slowly increasing little bits in the shadows and highlights. For the blue slider as well. Alright, and this is with and without the tone curve. It's a bit maybe extreme here on this end, so let's tone it down in the highlights. That was really cool. Not sure about the green in the color, whether I like that or not. Could we try to maybe change the colors? Maybe desaturate it a little bit, so it's not as active. I think I want to make it fully gray, something like this. Just kind of get rid of the glare a bit. Alright, let's add some color grading here. Let's grade the highlights to be a bit more bluish. And the shadows we could make in this dark blue region. Right, some sharpening. Let's go back up. Let's see what we can bring up the shadows a tiny bit. Bring back down the whites. I think we need to crop in a bit as well to a 4x5 so there's not as much negative space at the top. Now let's add a linear gradient here. A bit of darkness here in the bottom of the image. Could add some more contrast here as well, as I do really like those leading lines which come from these rails or whatever that is. Those look quite lovely, so increase the clarity, some texture, maybe not that much. Otherwise it gets a bit noisy, especially with these low light pictures. That looks quite nice. Let's add a radial filter here on these highlights so we can emphasize them a bit more. Let's try to do more of the highlights instead. Some clarity down, dehaze down a little bit. And we could do a very similar thing with the brush. Just kind of go over these a bit, over all the lights here in this picture, so we can make them pop. Decrease the clarity, decrease the dehaze, and increase the exposure and the highlights a little bit. So we could do for these headlights the same thing. I think we could add some more blue in the midtone and shadow area. Perhaps do it through here. See, this image is quite noisy. We could try adding a denoise filter. Let's see how that works. Already, instantly you can see the difference on this window. Just really do like denoise 15. Let's see how that looks. And here you see the results with the denoiser. That looks much better. So, let's see it. Here's the before, after, before. That's great. Thank you to everyone who submitted their pictures. The photographers whose pictures I edited will be linked in the description, so definitely check out their pages. Tell me what you think of these results in the comments down below. And if you found some value in this video or just found it entertaining, definitely leave a like, comment, subscribe. That is it from me. Thanks much for watching the video. I will see you guys in the next one.